Our next guest wants you to know why you should never sell your San Diego real estate. Please welcome from Century 21 Award, Steve Ploetz.
And we're live on the Real Estate Debate. Steve Ploetz is here. Hey, thanks for coming in, man, today to argue with me.
I noticed you didn't have anybody to break us up when the haymakers got thrown, so maybe some of the staff can jump in.
Well, this is really hitting home because you said this before on the show, that you don't think anyone should ever sell real estate in San Diego. That unless you have to, you should not sell your real estate in San Diego. And it appears that everyone is listening to you.
Whether they've heard my voice or they're just...
It's caught on,
yeah.
this thing where no one wants to sell their house. And so we have this environment where there's very little inventory and the market is just sort of, it's jagged a little bit.
Right.
It's sort of like if you've ever traded a stock that isn't traded that much, the chart looks really jagged. It's messy. So that's kind of where we're at. So first and foremost, why in the world is this your stance that you should never sell unless you have to? Explain that to me.
Well, I'm going to start with trying to summarize your stance, which is your stance in a nutshell is buy low, sell high.
Yes.
Is that comfortable?
Yeah. Okay. Or buy high, sell higher. That
yes,
also works.
That also works. But
take profits.
Get out of the market when you've got a profit.
When you have,
and when it's appropriate to get out of the market.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So let's look back, because it's easier to look backwards than it is to look forwards. And if we look backwards, let's just say hypothetically that we're starting in 2000. And there's a home buyer. We'll call him Mr. Savvy. Mr. Savvy buys a house in 2000. What's a fair price? $300,000 for a house in San Diego?
Sure.
Okay. So what would that house be worth at the top?
Who knows?
500?
Okay.
Okay. At the very bottom, 2009, 200?
Okay.
And then today we're probably back up to 500. Are you comfortable with these numbers?
So far, so good.
Because I'm setting up, you can see the set, I'm setting you up here. So in your style, Mr. Savvy buys in 2000 for $300,000. He sells at the peak of the market, which is when? 2005, 2006?
Sure.
Okay. He sells it for $500,000. He makes $200,000. Now, of course, he's paid his principal down. He's got to pay commissions. But for simplicity, we're going to say he makes $200,000.
Okay.
Then he gets out of the market, and he waits because he's going to wait for this to soften, and because he listened to Ask Mr. Credit, who said, "Get out of the market. You got to get out." So he listened. He got out of the market. He waited. Of course, he rents. We'll just use round numbers, $2,000 a month. So we'll call that $25,000 a year. He's got his $200,000. He rents from 2006, 7, 8, and buys again in 2009.
Probably 10.
10.
Probably
okay.
buys in 10.
So he buys in 10. So he's rented at $25,000 a year. So there's $100,000. Now he made $200,000 on his purchase. So now he's got $100,000 and he's buying back in, and he buys the same house. Same exact house comes back on the market. It was a short sale. Now it's worth $200,000. So he buys that same house, he puts $100,000 down, and then from there, coach me through it. He's in today's market. Are you advising sell today or wait a year? What do you think?
I think it's a good time to sell for a lot of people.
Okay. And I agree that we're making vast statements about San Diego, which has a lot of local markets, and each person's situation is a little bit different. But so he buys, with the $100,000 that he has left in equity, he buys a $200,000 house. Today it's worth $500,000. He sells it. And in real estate alone,
things are going really well.
He's made $400,000.
Yeah.
And of course, he's working a real job, and that's after paying rent. That sounds fantastic in theory. Here's my opinion what happens in practice. What happens in practice is Mr. Savvy buys in 2000. The market is going up. He's been listening to Derrick Evans, and Derrick Evans is saying, get out of the market. And he has heard, better to sell too early than too late. So it's 2003. His $300,000 house is worth $400,000. He says, I got $100,000 right here. I can take $100,000 off the table. Hell yeah, I'm going to take $100,000 off the table. So he sells. But it's 2003. So now he's going to wait until the market softens. 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, he's renting. $2,000 a month, $25,000 a year, about. Helps my example if we round it up a little bit.
I'll give you that.
$150,000.
Okay.
Now he's down $50K. Because he made $100, but he just rented for $150.
You know, the only thing you're missing with this theory?
Tell me what I'm missing.
A big gray beard. That's the only thing that you're missing with the gray beard theory is a big gray beard.
I'm with you. And I see you want to jump in, and I'm not going to let you yet. The problem with your model, in my opinion, is that it requires that you be savvy, informed, pay attention to the market. These are all obvious. Shoot, we live in the greatest country in the world and arguably the greatest city in the world. Why wouldn't we be informed? Why wouldn't we follow markets? Why wouldn't we check up and recognize that when things happen in Brazil, that all of a sudden, and the Brazil market goes down, that now I need to invest in emerging markets? But people don't do it.
Well, I need a pin because I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to come back. This is what you're doing, right? You're wanting me to forget all my points.
This is part of the plan, for sure. Is it still my floor? Can I keep
ahead.
going?
Yes.
So, you talked briefly about markets, and you talked about how they jump all over the place. And I saw a slide, which I will send to you that we can post, which is, and the stock market is different than real estate in that the stock market is more liquid, but there are some similarities in the trends.
Sure.
That was a study that showed somebody that invested January 1st, 1997, $10,000, and today, and where it would be today. And if and it tracked the S&P. So if they stayed in the S&P, their return would be 7.68%. So again, for making my models look good, we're going to round it up.
Oh man, he keeps doing this.
8%, let's just say.
Okay.
So you buy in January 1st, 1997, $10,000. Today, you've made 8% on that money. If you missed the best 10 days, so that means one day, and it's the best day, one day every other year, your 8% investment goes down to, 8% return goes down to 4%. You miss 20 days. You miss one day every year.
One good day, the best day.
The best day. Yeah, that's not just one day. That's a good point. The best day.
It seems extremely hypothetical, Steve.
This is a way hypothetical. This is a way hypothetical. So you miss the best day, your 8% goes from 4% to 1.5%. That is one day, the best day, that you're out of the market if you don't get back in. Simple, and the final stat I will say on this, and again, we're talking stock market, which is slightly different than real estate market. But in that situation, they said that 6 of the 10 best days came within 2 weeks of the 10 worst days. Brexit's a simple example. Mm-hmm. You lose 8% on your return in 2 days. Everybody goes, oh hell, get me out. I want to put all my money in cash. Then 3 weeks later, it's new highs. It's bounced back. It's gone everywhere.
Yep.
You can make more money in your model. You can lose more money too. And I guess my advice would be, if you watch the real estate debate, Smarter San Diego, and you listen to Derrick Evans every single day, 100% of the time, do the model. Get in when he says get in, get out when he says get out. Otherwise, my model, you bought in 2000 for $300,000. It went up to $500,000. It dropped back down to $200,000. Today it's around $500,000. Again, hypothetical numbers. But the big thing is, if you were in a fixed mortgage, you're 2/3 done with your payment. You're about, rounding again to make my numbers better, you're about 20 years in.
I got to figure out how to get in on this rounding thing. This little edge.
It's really effective for arguments.
Keeps rounding.
I use this at home a lot. I just round the numbers.
So babe, let's say I've been the best husband in the world.
Forever.
For a long, long time. Just round it. So here, there's a couple things.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not saying that everyone should sell, and I'm definitely not saying that people should be selling and buying houses. Because in fact, my real theory is that you should sell and buy a lot less than you do. When you buy your first, a lot of times people say, oh no, get in, buy a condo, buy a starter house. Then you'll be able to upgrade to this house. Then you'll be able to upgrade to that house. By the time you're 3 transactions later, and the cost associated with those transactions has really cost you a lot of what your gain was. Right. And that built-in guaranteed risk. Because if you say, well, I'm going to buy a condo and then I'm going to upgrade to a house later, you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself, let's say, if it's a $300,000 condo, $25,000 or $30,000 in cost. So just take that right off the top of wherever you are. So my actual advice to people buying real estate is to buy your forever house first. Or really try. Really try. If you have to wait an extra few years to save up the down payment to get the house that you think would be the one you could live in forever and retire in, that would be smarter. Because coinciding with what you're saying, you don't ever have to sell. You know, you can hold it for the long haul. And any real estate that you can hold for 10, 15 years, there's no one who owns real estate today or at any point in time who said, I wish I would have sold my real estate 15 years ago.
Right.
That's something you never hear anyone say. Because in the long haul, it does work out. So this is the macro aspect that you're going for is the graybeard theory, which is that just hold it, it'll get there. And the longer you can hold on to it, the more it'll be worth. And that's probably true.
And I'm in agreement with your model. And to which I'm going to jump in and say,
wait a minute, you're interrupting me now?
You're not allowed to interrupt me. I'm allowed to round numbers. And
He's rounding, no interruptions. Well, this is a stacked deck here. Whose studio is this?
This is the Steve Ploetz studio. Welcome to the Real Estate Today. How do you buy your first home? How do you buy your forever home as a first-time home buyer? How do you save enough money?
That's what you have to budget that. You have to figure that out. Because you can't be guaranteed that going in and buying that condo is actually going to get you to the promised land. You can't be guaranteed of that. That's not a guarantee. If you bought a condo in 2007, you're probably still trying to recover from that. Whereas if you just continue to save your money for 5 years, or maybe even 10 years, if you continue to save your money, because one of the arguable elements of your pitch is that renting is completely throwing money in the trash, and home buying isn't. That's one of the things.
Right.
So you're saying if you're renting, that's 100% trash money, whereas if you buy the house, it's not. But there are risks with buying the house too. You know, it could
There's
go
benefits
down.
to renting
There's
for sure.
Maintenance. There's other
Easier to move. It's more liquid. My lease expires. I can just get out.
Sure.
I need to move all of a sudden. Something breaks. I can make a phone call rather than.
I'm just monetarily speaking. You know, the maintenance that could be involved in a home, or the fact that the interest is tax deductible, but still you only save 30% of it. So 2/3 of that is just like rent.
Right.
So it's not quite apples to apples when you look at just, okay, well, the rent money is all garbage. We have to take that away from our profits.
Right.
I think that's a flaw in your math. But I do think, and this is where I'm at right now, I do believe strongly that a lot of people who want to sell or have wanted to sell for the past couple of years but can't pull themselves to do it because every month they look at Zillow or every day they look at Zillow and it just ticked up a little higher.
Yeah.
So they just sit there. I think if you live in a bad neighborhood, let's call that, or you have a weird house with a funky layout, or I'm talking about certain areas of Spring Valley or Encanto or even Chula Vista, or some areas where it's like, boy, you know what? Tomorrow this house could be worth $100,000 less than we can get for it today, and no one would be shocked. Those people who have wanted to sell, who need to sell, need to downsize, they're empty nested, whatever it may be, I think it's a good time to do it. And I'm just saying the sell side. I'm not saying you won't get raked over the coals on the buy side.
Right.
Because that's the kind of market. But I am saying that it is a good time to sell. And for some people, I'll give you an example. And in this realm, you tend to be as jaded as your last real example, right? That always tends to like skew you a little bit. And I've got one right now where we have someone, a couple, a great couple, and they're in a house that's too big for them. They're now officially empty nested. They could sell it and take like a $200,000 and some profit, tax free.
Yeah, because it's a primary residence.
Primary residence.
And, yeah.
They could go buy a condo in a place that they really, really like, that has all the amenities they want, tennis courts, all this stuff.
Keep their property tax if they're over 55. They can do the one-time Prop 60, Prop 90.
So many advantages, Steve. They only owe like $100,000 to $125,000 on the loan. That's what they'll be financing because of the profits they're rolling over. And they'll have a teeny tiny payment, which they could easily pay off in the course of the next 10 years. And then they're sitting there and they only have to make HOA payments every month to live in a resort in San Diego, And I feel, and I'm concerned that if they don't, and they're in a tough spot, they're not in a great spot. They're in one of those places that's like, Right. But right now, everything's hot. Especially in the 550 and under price range. So if they were to sell and take advantage of this and put themselves in that really good spot, that's bird in the hand, man. It's a big bird in the hand.
Right.
There might be two smaller ones in the bush that they're considering, oh, well, we could wait and it might be worth $600. That might happen, but it also might be worth $450.
Right.
by the time you decide to get around to do it. And oh, by the way, the roof might go out in the meantime.
And if talking about the demographic where they're empty nesters, they're probably 60 plus and getting out of the workforce or beginning to think about how much longer do I want to go through this? Do I want to go through another cycle? If this is 2004, nobody knows what year this is in the cycle.
Right.
And certainly we each have our own opinions on where it is. But if this is 2004, am I willing to wait?
Is that what you think? You think this is 2004 in the cycle?
That's a great question. I think we've got another 18 months. And I don't think
So you think this is 2006?
the turn is not going to be nearly as drastic.
Of course.
But yeah, I think based on way too much demand, supply increasing, we're going to need a drastic drop in demand or a drastic catalyst that brings a lot of supply on the market. And we've talked about, yes, what would happen with some unforeseen event, some terrorist attack, something like that creates...
I think I may have predicted it last night in my dreams.
Oh my.
So I had a
Those
dream
of you
last
at
night.
home, take note. Good thing you're on Facebook Live because now you can get it right away. Instantaneous. Hold on, I'm ready.
So take notes. No, I did. I don't remember my dreams hardly ever. And last night I had these crazy, in-depth, specific dreams about natural disasters. We're on the coast here, and the water was coming at us, and land was falling, and I think it will probably be some sort of natural disaster.
Wow.
Straight from my dreams last night, bro. There it is. But anyway, so I don't know what the catalyst will be, and that's the thing that we're missing. But we never know.
Right.
When it sneaks up on you, that's when it's the most impactful. That's when everybody at the same time goes,
Get me out.
That happened?
Supply goes...
Move.
Yep.
Steve, need to sell the house. Steve, need to sell the house. So when that happens, what will take place? Now, I don't know if you saw this, but lending guidelines are loosening.
Yep.
So they're loosening lending guidelines on the Fannie Mae level.
Right.
Increasing debt ratio requirements.
History repeats itself because nobody listens. Yep.
That's the thing. So I have a lot of concerns, and I think that there are people who have big profits on the table right now. Their chips are right there. All they have to do is just scoop them right here and then just kind of see what happens. Now, if there's someone who's like, you know what, we're in the perfect house for us, why sell it?
Right.
If you're in the perfect house, don't sell it. Why would you sell it if you're in the perfect house? That makes no sense. But if you're like, this isn't right for us, we've been waiting for the right time, what are you waiting for? Oh, well, we can't find anywhere to go. You can figure that out, right? You can figure that out. Sell while you have the chance to take your money off the table. If you have to rent for a year or two while you're looking for that perfect place, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. Because while you may look like a bozo for a year or two, at the most,
Right.
you're going to look like a genius after that.
You sold at the top. You looked like a bozo. I've heard you say I looked like an idiot for 6 months, and then I was a genius after that.
10 months.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, why'd you sell your house, dummy? Because they were still buying. And then after that, when everyone was like, oh man, I got 8 houses. How many people did you know had 6, 8 houses back then?
Way over leveraged, for sure.
Way over leveraged.
And I think that's a big piece of my, I don't want to say my model.
Yeah, I'm Steve.
The Ploetz model.
This is Ploetz model. Well, rounding always works in your behalf.
You got to work conservatively. You got to work with numbers that make sense. You got to get in fixed mortgages. You got to make sure that if things change, my job situation changes, that I am in a comfortable fixed situation. Because otherwise, it makes no sense. Because otherwise, I'm in some interest only. It doesn't matter. Market goes up and down. Then I've got to time the market.
Yeah.
And that's where damage happens. So, if I'm in something conservative, and I know that rents with vacancies can cover my rental, or that I know that where the payment is going to be, or it gives you options. I mean, you talked about a previous time that we had met that you had never looked back on a stock and felt like that you had sold and seen that it had gone down drastically. And I'm sure that
I wish I'd never sold a stock I ever bought. Yes,
Right.
I'd be worth so much money.
But of course, you used those proceeds to buy other stocks.
Sure.
But that's a similar argument that I'm making.
And I totally get the gray beard argument, man. You just need the gray beard. That's all. You come in here with a bow tie and a gray beard.
It doesn't come that
Not
easy.
yet, Steve, but eventually these
Yeah.
things, they'll take place.
Get into my teens.
When you grow up.
When I grow up.
But that, you're right, and I get that, and I do agree with that. It would be great if you could, when you buy a house, buy the house that you plan to keep forever. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So because of that, people have to get involved in transactions. When it's a seller's market, that's a good time to sell. I'm concerned about the people who are waiting to sell. Let me be real specific. I'm concerned about the people who are waiting to sell. I'm going to wait to sell, and just so casually doing so. We're going to sell like about this time next year. Why? That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me because I'm jaded, because I did talk radio for 10 years and listened to everyone's problems.
Right.
And what happens is if you say, well, I'm gonna sell this out here at that time, who knows what the market's going to be like during that window?
I agree.
I mean, if I put that kind of pressure on you.
I agree with you there. If you're going to sell no matter what, and you can look at today's market, or you can have some conjecture about what's going to happen in next market, whether it's a year or 2 years, or, I mean, I say, oh, I think we've got 18 months. That's a guess. We'll call it a slightly educated guess based on some experience.
I think it's a very educated guess. I do, because you've clearly, been selling real estate for a while. We're getting the straight scoop from you. I mean, Steve is an agent, and he's telling us not to sell real estate, right? So I think we can see there's no conflict in your advice here. But it's true that people do need to sell real estate.
Right.
They do. For a lot of reasons. Not everyone can keep this house and buy the next one.
Right.
Which is what you recommend. Don't sell this one, just buy the next one.
Right.
Keep it all. And that's great if you can afford to. A lot of people can't.
Right.
But I do think that people who are waiting for a better time to sell, or who are just assuming that the market will be good next year. Oh yeah, we're going to sell this time next year. We have no concerns. I think that's dangerous.
Those people aren't listening to you or me.
Right.
They've created their own third gray beard. Nobody recommends that. One of us is right and one of us is wrong. Nobody else is right.
Well, here's the thing we're starting to see. Like loosening of lending guidelines.
Right.
Okay. That's a problem and that's a red flag in my opinion. We're seeing price reductions in some of the hottest markets in San Diego, Carmel Valley. Look at all the price reductions. How is that possible? If you look at it and go, price reduction in Carmel Valley? Must be because the sellers are out of their minds. And you go and look at it and go, no, they're actually priced pretty right. Why are we seeing price reductions? Why is the activity down? It always starts in the $1 million+ market, right? That's where it starts. Oh, we're seeing price reductions. Oh, we're seeing stuff sit on the market. The signs are there, man. But if you have a house that's worth under $600,000, you're going to be fine for a while. If you have a house that's $800,000 in Escondido, then you need to pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. Or if you're in a bad house, okay, when I say bad house, I mean a bad layout, a
right.
tough, an awkward layout, where in a market where there's lots of houses to choose from, no one would buy that, sell that house today. If you're in one of those neighborhoods that has historically been known to be a bad neighborhood, even though it may be on the up and coming, that's one also. This is a good time.
In your opinion.
In my opinion.
And that's where I disagree.
I know, you think hold on to it. I get it.
Right.
But in my opinion, yes, because if you have that house, they're selling houses in Encanto for almost $500,000. If you still have that house in 2 years and that's when you decide you want to sell, it could easily be back to $350,000 again.
Right.
Easily. And for a lot of those people, that sale would then represent proceeds for them that would be the most money they've ever had at one time.
I'm in agreement with that. And certainly it's unfair for me to make a sweeping statement about the entire San Diego market. I mean, I'm not going to pick on Encanto as much as you've picked on Encanto, but if I had...
It's just everyone knows that, that's widely known.
If I had a piece of property in Alpine, I don't, but if I did, and my thought was, well, I'll get out of this property and I'll buy another and I'll rent it out in Alpine. I don't know what the rental market looks like in Alpine.
Gotcha.
And so there would need to be some things that, I mean, obviously each situation is independent and needs to be looked at. And that's why you need a professional that can give you some advice. But I think that too easily people think exactly as you talked about, well, just trade up, trade up, trade up. I'll go from condo to townhome to house to Carlsbad to La Jolla.
More west,
yeah, exactly, to Beverly Hills. And it ain't that easy. And I don't want it, and I do think that there's a demographic that doesn't want to sell just because they look at, sell this house that we've lived in for a long time and rent. The rental market is stupid. The rental market is stupid, is stupider a word? Is more stupid, stupider than the sales market. I mean, and I don't know. There's valid arguments on both sides, but certainly something to consider.
All right, let's do a couple. Let's see, Lexi Medgaus.
Oh,
Steve rules, she says. Connor Megdaus. Steve is winning. Disagree, Connor. Disagree. But I mean, it is.
Hi, Lexi and Connor.
It is. It is. Sort of, clients of yours or friends of yours?
Friends, family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Family. Okay. So that's the reason. But I mean, it's true that ideally, yes, you could buy something and hold on to it forever. I just don't see that everyone's in that situation, and I keep seeing people wait. And you know what? They've been right. This is the hard part, Steve. People who've waited to sell have been right.
Yeah.
And so their sort of natural action is to continue to do that.
Right.
To continue to wait. Well, it's just going to keep getting better. It's just going to keep getting better. It's just going to keep getting better. And then when they all collectively decide that we've hit the top, which they will, it's going to be an article in the UT or a natural disaster per my dreams or whatever. Something is going to trigger everyone going, okay, we got here. Time to go. And you'll see just waves. And then the people who were thinking about selling, when their neighbor beats them to it and the sign goes in the yard and they go, shit.
They'll go $10,000 underneath them.
Yeah, we need to get ours on the market.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas right now, people see neighbors' sign go in the yard, they go, oh, let's wait and see what it sells for.
To which the argument is the same as Brexit. Brexit happens and people lose 8%. I would say the mentality is similar where people say, I just lost 8% in 2 days. I need to get out. I need to be in cash. I need to be in something safe. And I think it's at those times that you need some kind of professional. In that case, it wouldn't be a real estate professional, but you need a professional that can look at it and say, okay, hang on a second, let's look at data. Let's figure this out. Is now the time to do what you want to do? What are your goals? What are the things that you want?
Should we be selling or should we be buying?
Right.
That's the thing.
Should we wait a year and buy as much as we can?
And that's what I'm concerned about, is that everyone's going to put their house on the market, and that's actually going to present a great time for buyers, but they're going to be selling. That's my concern. So for all the buyers, a lot of buyers have checked out of this market. For them, that'll be a great day. That'll be a great day. But for our sellers out there who have a chance to really cash in, I think they'll miss the boat. So let's see, we're going to do an official internet vote right now. Let's see, oh, it looks up. Steve sells. Julie, thanks, Julie. Steve does sell. He did a good job. Thanks for coming in, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great stuff. All right, appreciate the comments. Share this post if you thought it was informative. And of course, like this page, The Real Estate Debate. We'll see you next time.